Welcome to Scoreography, a podcast about the greatest sport on ice, figure skating. I'm Wendy Buskey.
And I'm Adrian Buskey, and this is our NHK Trophy 2024 recap, which of course is part of the Grand Prix qualifier events. Japan never disappoints. They always put on amazing events. The fans show up and show out. A couple of episodes ago, I was throwing a little side eye at Skate Canada because the Halifax audience was pretty mid as far as their reactions to people, even when there were just beautiful skates that just felt like golf clapping in the audience a lot of time.
Some of our fans did defend themselves, I will say.
That's true. We had a few people say that some of the performances that were apparently so striking at home watching it on TV were in the audience not particularly that impressive. And as I feel like we've been beating it a lot, the fact that we were at Skate America in person, I mean, there is a very distinct difference between the in-person experience and the at-home. And so, yeah, that really can change your perceptions of things pretty heavily. But still, when you watch NHK and you see how warm and receptive the Japanese audience is, how supportive they are of all of the skaters, and how they really just lifted everybody up there, and just what kind of amazing events that they put on, how well they're styled, just a beautiful arena and everything. You can tell that for a lot of the competitors, this is their favorite event to go do. Some of them are less quiet about it than others, that they're always thrilled to be at NHK.
Whenever you watch an event like this, I think you feel the diminished presence of skating in other parts of the world. We always talk about Europeans last year in Lithuania, and they blew the place up in the best possible way. And NHK isn't like that level, but it is so warm, inviting. Even the kiss and cry is lovely. Like, everything they do is with care. And obviously, it's a very educated skating audience. So it makes me appreciate the Japanese audience even that much more.
It's just the general appreciation for how they handle things that it always seems to be really nice. But let's just dive in and get into it, because I think that there was some really interesting stuff going on here, some really fabulous performances, some big surprises as well. So let's jump into the men.
I think NHK overall was a lot more of the what we expect, even though there were a few surprises. I think it was a much steadier competition overall. But the men's competition specifically, I don't think anyone was surprised to see Yuma Kagiyama hit 300 points and easily defeat the rest of this field. He was 100% in a class by himself. And it was the reminder of, on the right day, Yuma can beat everybody, even Ilya, depending on how Ilya's doing. And got me excited again about that burgeoning rivalry between the two of them in the friendliest rivalry type of way. Lots of mutual respect. The two of them really do outclass everyone, but in totally different ways.
If you look at Skate France, where the men's scores were very low, and there's a lot of this that's pretty on par with that, lower into the podium, but to have a men's winner be back over the 300 mark by a smidge, I mean, just barely by a smidge. And Yuma is capable of bigger numbers than that. He's also capable of programs that are a little stronger than this. I think that his short
magnificent.
Is absolutely fantastic. I think that the free skate still has some room to grow and improve, and it definitely wasn't perfect here, but it didn't need to be perfect because he won by 36 points. He had a lot of cushion.
He was okay not to be perfect here. And I will say, just as a fan of his footwork has just, I mean, it's always been great, but there's something really special about that this year in both of his programs. Mesmerizing is the only word I can think of. He's put in the work, and it's just so great to see.
While, I mean, we've definitely said it before, I don't think you can overstate the impact of having Carolina Costner as choreographer and coach alongside his dad, who is adorable. But the influence that she has had on his artistry, and also just seeing them in the kiss and cry and coming off the boards and stuff, the warmth that they share now too, it's made a big improvement to Yuma, who was already pretty fabulous, but now is like so strong. So we know his ceiling is higher than 300.09. I think that by the end of this season, we're going to see big explosive numbers. And we know that the target is Ilya. So by the end of the season, we should be looking at him throwing extremely difficult programs aimed at those really large numbers so that he can aim for the top of the podium competitively with Ilya Malinin. But I think the real surprise at this one is the second place finish of Italy's Daniel Grassel.
we didn't know what to expect from Grassl coming in. He's had a very eventful couple of years, and unfortunately, that's not on the ice. It's more in the coaching changes, location changes, questions about his eligibility. It's just been an unpredictable thing seeing him coming back into competition. And in his first effort, he did well, but he didn't necessarily on the Challenger Series like give anyone encouragement to think that he was really going to be setting his sights on the top of the podium. Here, I felt like he really did show up in a big way. And by getting that silver medal, he keeps himself very well in contention amongst, not the very top men, but that next level down, which is littered with a lot of skaters, but he's now amongst them again.
Yeah, the second tier is the really competitive space right now. You really only have a couple of guys that are at the very, very top. I mean, we're talking Yuma, Adam Schauenfall when he's actually on and fully healthy.
Right.
And of course, Ilya. And then, a couple of the other Japanese skaters who on the right day, Shunsato, Sota Yamamoto occasionally, and really Kalmura. But, as we'll see here and talk about, that inconsistency really mars his ability to stay up there. But Grassl here was very solid. I mean, at 264.85 is, again, not huge numbers, but would have won Skate France.
Yeah, by a lot.
By a lot. And as much as I do not understand what is happening in his free skate, because musically and flow wise, it is so jarring. It makes such strange shifts. Maybe there's some sort of cultural thing that I'm not getting, but it is very bizarre to me. Regardless of that, Daniel skated it very well. I think that his jumps are looking really strong.
Yeah.
He's always been a good technical skater, even if his form has always been a little unusual. But he was definitely, a couple of years ago, one of those guys that you could never count out because he could throw a strong technical program. But he has clearly been studying his dance and his artistry, and you can see, even when it doesn't necessarily always flow together perfectly, the intent is there, and he's really made some efforts and some growth in that arena.
You just hit the nail on the head of like what always kind of keeps me from really loving any Daniel Grassl program. It's the in-betweens. He'll have something that actually looks quite beautiful on the ice, and like you can tell he is putting it out there. He is invested, he is committed, which I truly appreciate. But his transitions and the kind of empty space in between big elements almost to me stand out even more, because he's doing these big jumps and really trying to make a case for some of his choreography. But then there's just places where he drops his arms and looks a little floppy. It's just not all cohesive yet, but big improvement, and it'll be really intriguing to see where he goes the rest of the season. But I kind of want to talk about who came in third, because Tatsuya Tsuboi from Japan had an amazing competition, better than I've ever seen him by a lot. And he is not one of the Japanese men that, like we just named off like 3 or 4 of them. He's not usually amongst the top Japanese men. So for him to come here in Japan and show up the way he did was really just a delight.
For years, one of the most hotly contested competitions in all of skating is Japanese nationals.
Yeah.
Because their singles events have such deep fields. They have such extraordinary pools of talent. And so guys like Tsuboi, who are terrific skaters, still get lost lower in the pack because there's just such enormous talent above them. I don't think I've ever seen him show up this strongly. This is a real home ice delivery. He was third in the free, third in the short, third overall on a podium. I believe it's his first Grand Prix medal. And to do that at home in front of a audience that was totally behind him was really great to see. His energy is wonderful. I don't know, the Japanese guys in general, like they're all so strikingly different, but they're all so interesting and they're all so inviting as skaters. And Tsuboi, I think in particular, really has this kind of underdog quality that makes him fun to root for. To see him get that kind of success here was really enjoyable. He definitely, again, numerically isn't a top podium contender, although, again, this number here with a 251.52 would have still won Skate France, which I feel is like going to be the running joke of everything, is that like, well, but you could have won Skate France.
So could have Andrew Torgashev.
Yes. And if there's a thing I think is actually really great here, it's America's Andrew Torgashev, who had only one Grand Prix assignment, which was Skate France. And he got immediately added to NHK Trophy after being at that event, after
taking the bronze.
Right, after taking the bronze, a surprise podium there. A lot of times when skaters get this very last minute ad, they really struggle because it's a tough thing to go to another country and then suddenly be like, oh, you're not going home. You're going halfway across the world. And that was very much the case for him, where they were like, hey, you packed enough clothes for a week and
Brandon Fraser.
And threw Brandon Fraser into your suitcase as well to be your stand-in coach. And you got done there, got on the podium, and then the US Fed was like, oh, a spot opened up. We're sending you to Japan. And then to show up here and, just off the podium, but to do two very solid performances. That short program is still dynamite, man. I just really, really like that program. He was fourth in the short, fifth after the free, evened out into fourth place overall with a 246.58, which is still a very solid number for Torgashev.
And better than what he got winning the bronze in France the week before. I love this because it shows consistency. And that is the thing that Torgashev has long suffered by not having. He hasn't shown that to the US Fed. And that is what gets you put on world teams. So in this particular instance, him going to Japan and skating as well as he did gives him a huge amount of momentum going into US Nationals.
Yeah, so that's a big deal for him. He was thrilled. I love his dynamic with Brandon. I want them to keep that because it clearly works. Whatever the alchemy is clearly works.
Yes.
And
just Brandon's your new good luck charm.
Yeah. But for Torgs, this is such a big piece of momentum, a big vote of confidence. Really sets him up nicely to be like kind of the second U.S. men's skater. So yeah, super fun.
Well, in fifth, Matteo Rizzo, he's still coming back from an injury, had a bit of a messy short program, but my goodness, his long was so beautiful. He kept his Coldplay Fix You program from last season, and it was just beautiful to watch.
I don't think that program would have been nearly as strong if it wasn't for the tremendous support from the Japanese audience. Matteo really hyped them up and got them clapping and got them involved in it, and they were totally behind him. And even though we've seen him skate that program better, seeing him interface with the crowd and really just get that energy up with them was a ton of fun. Matteo is a fantastic skater. He is still, like you said, he's coming back from surgery and is not the total package that he was previously. I do expect him to get there, but he's a wonderful performer, and I was just happy to see him on the ice. And I was glad he kept the Fix You program because I think, especially coming back from such an injury, it's good to hold on to something that's strong.
Exactly. Well, unfortunately, in sixth, Kalmira, who for the first time got over 100 points in his short program, a new personal best, and was second only by a few points behind Yuma Kagiyama going into the free. And then he was 11th in the free skate. That evened out to sixth place, which is really kind of astonishing, but it just was a bit heartbreaking.
Kao is the other Japanese guy who really does have the ability to rack up the big scores. Watching that short program, which was mind-blowing. I mean, it was so strong. And his reaction and his team's reaction in the kiss and cry when he got that huge number was really exciting because he's been fighting to crack that for a long time. And to finally get that here was a big deal. But what we've seen is that Kao does have some vulnerabilities in his mental game when it comes to handling the pressure and expectation. And we've seen that in other time periods. He can deliver extraordinary programs or he can fall apart. And this was definitely kind of one of the worst things that I've seen from him for a while in that free skate. I did think it was really interesting that he came out at the gala and did something really unusual, which was that he brought his full free skate, his Beauty and the Beast free skate that he won 4 continents with a couple of years ago, and did that program as his gala with all of the jumps.
Yeah, the full 4-minute program. And it was not perfect, but it almost felt like I am going to prove this to myself that I should be here. And I mean, he did I think a quad toe, triple toe combination in the gala. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But good for him. I loved seeing it.
I felt like Kao was saying to the Japanese audience, I didn't give you your money's worth in the free skate, so I'm going to do it here at the gala. And the audience responded by giving him the audience award at that, because the NHK does awards at the end of it, which is always fun. So he got a little prize.
From Domo.
And that very clearly meant a lot to him, and he was very surprised by it. So I thought that was really cool. And then in seventh here is Jason Brown. And we've talked a lot about how Jason he's in sort of a rough spot early in the season because he has not had all of his jumps together. His axles are just absolutely denying him right now. But the programs are starting to come together otherwise. So the score here reflects both the fact that he doesn't have quads and that in his free skate, his axles just both popped. But he stayed up in that program, which was really important. And I think that's the big thing, was that he was able to take that free skate, which is supposed to be one long flowing movement, and actually make it that, even if a couple of the jumps weren't very good.
Exactly. That's why I'm not concerned yet with Jason. He seems fine in the sense that he's disappointed, obviously, but I feel like by not falling and just popping those jumps, normally with other competitors, I would actually be more concerned about that. Like, okay, you're not even trying these. But he did scratchily pull one out in the short, and then he fell on his combination, which was so frustrating. You could see him just have that, like, I could do that in my sleep. That's silly. But overall, I think by U.S. Nationals, this will come together. I agree. Both of these programs are starting to look far more polished and cohesive. It's just that triple axel that's betraying him right now. So I think he knows what he needs to work on between now and January. So we'll see how it goes. But I expect we'll see full Jason by January.
Well, let's take a shift over into ice dance. I think the podium shook out the way you'd probably expect it to. But what we did see here was not only a return to the top of the podium for Chock and Bates, not only their 20th consecutive Grand Prix medal with a gold here, which is absolutely bananas. The rhythm dance that I was pretty iffy on at Skate America has been tightened way up and was so strong here. And then the free dance was a miracle on ice.
I love that statement. That's not bold at all. No, it was absolutely stunning. It really is one of the best programs in ice dance I've ever seen. Their free dance this year is so special. I don't know what that extra sprinkle on top of the whipped cream is, but it's there and it's just mesmerizing. And I feel like all of the Chock and Bates accusations of they're a gimmicky pair, they always have to do something different and make it weird or whatever. Like, because with the Alien program, I know that was something that came up a lot. This feels like all of the best elements of what Chock and Bates do really well, just pushed into a perfect 4-minute program. And it's now the highest scoring ice dance program of any team this season so far. And that's absolutely deserved. I just have to be careful not to gush too much over it because I feel like I'm going to be annoying. I just feel like it's magic.
Something I think is really striking about the Take 5 free dance is just how good Evan Bates is.
Yes.
I think because Madison Chock is just one of the most eye-catching skaters in the world, she is the show, and Evan is kind of the pillar of quality skating behind her, but sometimes you can kind of lose track of him a little bit because Madison is just such a bright presence out there. I think that program, it showcases them both beautifully, but I really was drawn to Evan so much through that performance because it just shows off his dance ability, his edges, his knees, all of the qualities. It just really showcases him in an extraordinary way. And then also lets Maddie do all of the things that she's utterly brilliant at, which is not just extraordinary skating ability, but an ability to connect with the audience and deliver sultry performances, flirty interactions. And more than that, it sounds like it's just that she's out there just flirting her way with an audience, but she does so much more than that. There's this incredible like spin maneuver that they do where the whole time is just sliding her across the ice out by one arm. The whole time that she is twisting and turning across the ice, she is still interacting with the audience and vamping and creating shapes and character moments. And it's just so impressive. It's so fun. And everything about that skate is quality. We saw it in person and it was incredible. Seeing it at home and getting to see all the details up close because of the camera work was also a very different experience. But here it was phenomenal.
I'll only say one more thing, which is that it feels like a movie to me. I feel like when it's done, I have just watched a film, which is a big compliment. I forget that I'm watching a competition.
Yeah, it really does kind of take you somewhere. And if there's something that I say a lot about programs is that I don't like one-note programs. I like things to feel like a full story. I want a narrative. I want 3-act structures. I want it to go somewhere, and that program goes somewhere. In a career full of really striking, very memorable skates, it is wild to me that Chock and Bates still come out there and deliver something I've never seen before. It's just wild.
All right, I'm going to move us on because we could keep talking about this for an hour. In silver, Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko. This is the first time we've seen them on the Grand Prix this season. I am still kind of iffy on their rhythm dance, but I love their free dance this year to Carmen. I think they sell the hell out of it. Both programs I will give credit to of really accentuating how technically capable both of them are. Like, it's not just the artistry with them, like in particular, Christina. Anthony's great, but I just always notice it with Christina. They're just so good. So it was really, really nice to see them get rewarded for that here.
I think that Anthony Ponomarenko, he should get an award for like most improved partner.
Yes.
Because just over the last 2 years, he has leveled up in such a significant way. He brings a ton to the performance and he's just opened up tremendously. And I think he is terrific to watch. I did think that their free dance here was not quite as impressive as we actually saw it earlier in the Challenger series. The time that we saw it before, it was so sexy and so emotional and moving and fun. This time around, it felt like it kind of lost a little bit of gas in the second half. Mm-hmm. In particular, it just felt like I could see Christina trying to keep up with it in the second half. And I think that just kind of lost a little bit of the energy, but still they are such a strong team. And I mean, this is a very deserved second place here. I just feel like they can do these programs better. So I'm looking forward to see what they deliver later on.
I did like to see the progress made just in a week from Allison Reed and Salias Amberlivicius. Their programs at Grand Prix de France, I wasn't terribly excited about. I mean, I love this team. I love how conceptual they are. But the concept wasn't working for me a week ago. And the difference between France and Japan, now I'm into it. It's a lot. And I'm not sure everyone's going to totally love the puppet theme of their free dance, but I dig it. I don't necessarily love Allison's tutu, I'll admit. I love Salius's costume. He looks evil and dark and it looks cool on him. But I love Allison regardless. And I'm just excited to see them kind of back where I would expect them to be at this point in the season.
I think that Puppet Master program is delightful. Here, it felt less frantic than it had in France. It felt a lot more controlled. It felt like they were in the character moments a lot more without feeling like they had to throw 5,000 moves, because it is a complicated program. There's a lot going on in that. I am behind in responding to everybody's comments on YouTube because the last couple of weeks have been a lot. But somebody did specifically ask me in the comments how I felt about the tutu, because I know I'm a huge fan of this team. And yes, the tutu is weird. The way it sticks out way too far in the back on Allison is kind of weirdly unflattering. And I do think that costume could use some work, particularly when you look at how cool Salius looks, because he looks like he's straight out of like a vampire movie or something. Allison is gorgeous. Don't mess it up with weird tutu stuff. Tone that down. But otherwise, I thought it was all really strong.
Well, I'm going to move us on to Caroline Green and Michael Parsons. This is the first time we've seen them in the Grand Prix series. Last season, they kind of, faltered. Feels like a harsh way of putting it, but they certainly took a bit of a step backwards. I think that they have corrected that quite a bit and worked with Jean-Luc Baker, who we adore. They look great here. They're still going to need some time to kind of regain momentum for sure, because that's how, frankly, ice dance works. But much better programs. They looked far more comfortable in them, especially the free dance is really wonderful.
Green and Parsons 2.5 years ago were really setting themselves up to be the next big American team. And then they just really diminished. I think that the material that they've had for the last couple of seasons just wasn't appropriate for them overall. I really liked their Scorpions program in the rhythm dance last year, which was a early season change, and it worked so much better on them. But in general, they came out of the gate so strong with really avant-garde stuff like in the last Olympic season. And then they've done some more kind of safe and kind of normie looking programs since then that have just not suited them. This seems far closer to who they are as skaters, both for their talents and their personal tastes. At least that's my perception of them, because it just looks so much better on them. So I was really happy to see them deliver really nice programs here. I think they were very happy, even with a fourth place just off the podium. This is a nice stride forward, because the American dance field is super competitive right now. 2 years ago, you would have said Green and Parsons in that kind of top 3 or so. Lately, you wouldn't have. So this is a nice move up for them. So I'm hoping that they can continue this and ride that momentum and keep delivering good stuff. The last team that I really want to just kind of throw something out for, they were down in 6th, but the Finnish team of Orihara and Pirinen, I really liked them here. They were super fun. I am not typically a big chorus line, cabaret-ish type of music fan or musical fan, but their free dance to chorus line fits them so perfectly. It so exactly matches their vibe and the way their partnership works. They were delightful. Both of their programs were great, but that one in particular really stood out to me. Really enjoyed them here.
It was so refreshing. I loved her leg warmers. And as soon as she came out in that look, I hadn't seen their program. I didn't know what they would be skating to. And I had that thought, they're so theatrical. They love Broadway. I wonder if this is a chorus line. And then it starts off with them doing like 1, 2, 3, 4. Immediately was like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. And they're really great at having a thematic and being their own iteration of a Broadway play. It's great to watch. I enjoy them. They're a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I was a theater kid in high school and college. And so, we can smell our own.
Yeah, you can.
Anytime those two step out where I'm like, oh, there's the theater kids.
Yep.
It was really fun.
All right, let's move on to the women's competition, where Kaori Sakamoto reminded everybody that she is the queen and there is a reason for it.
Early on, we've seen Kaori really struggle with that free skate. Her short program has been killer this whole time, but the free skate really was a different kind of program, very different vibe for anything that we've seen before, and she seemed pretty uncomfortable with it, both in the Challenger Series and when we saw her at Skate Canada. Here, that was corrected. She had full control over that program. She made it look completely natural. She had a delightful time with the Japanese audience and delivered everything that you expect from the 3-time world champion. She looked like Queen Kaori, and it was dynamite, and she won by almost 20 points. It was a dominant performance, just like you'd expect, and she was fabulous.
I loved it, and I felt validated in defending her choice of Chicago. Everything about it made me really happy, especially when she got all of the jumps done. All of her cell came out, her smile came out. It just felt so much better than what we've seen so far this season. And I am an unabashed Kaori Sakamoto stan forever. It was great. So happy.
Yeah, and a 231.88 here course corrects the low scoring season issue. And granted, I mean, Amber Glenn has also helped along with that. We saw super low numbers at Skate America, and it's been trending in the right direction since for the women. But this is Kaori looking like you want to see Kaori. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it other than she was fantastic.
I think we can move on to someone else who is helping the numbers overall this season. Mona Chiba, in her first Grand Prix this season, 2:12.54. She looked gorgeous. Her two programs are totally different. You have this disco-themed, very upbeat short program, and then this elegant, flowing free skate. And she's really coming into her own in terms of how she connects with an audience. Not only that, she connected on all of her jumps. So she just really sold every bit of it. And it was just a delight. And also that reminder, like, don't count Mona out of any medal podium this season, including Worlds.
Yeah, Mona Chiba is a delightful personality on the ice, and she has really leveled up her expression in her performances. There's a maturity that's starting to appear even when she is light and musical and sweet on the ice. She can also deliver drama, and you just see her developing as both an artist and an athlete. if she had not been versus a Kaori Sakamoto, I feel like she would have easily been the class of the field. And I think these are two of the best skates that we've seen so far from the women this whole season.
Agreed.
She was stunning. We talked early on about how good Cheon Kim looked, and she faltered a little bit in her first Grand Prix appearance. We had seen Monochiba in very small competitions early on in the sort of preseason, and she already looked stellar, but there can be some vulnerabilities there. And this is a really, really strong Monochiba out there. So she is definitely going to be a big threat for the Grand Prix final.
In third, someone who will not be at the Grand Prix final, but who had her moment here, was Japan's Yuna Aoki. We have been cavelling, is the word I'm going to choose to use in this moment, about Yuna Aoki skating now since the Challenge Cup early this year. And this time she came to this Grand Prix. Obviously, it's an honor as a Japanese skater to skate at NHK Trophy, so you could see that meant a lot to her. And she had a brilliant short program. Her free skate, I thought, was impeccable and got such a wonderful, warm, big reaction from the crowd. She had a few under rotations that cost her a little bit, and her technical wasn't as high as some of the competitors behind her. So she dropped to fifth in the free, which I still don't love because I feel like that was not quite right.
Don't get it. Yeah, I don't. I mean, she still ended in third, so it really didn't matter, but I really did not understand that fifth place in the free dance at all.
But I'm willing to forgive because she still took that bronze medal by 5 points over the fourth place finisher, Alyssa Liu. And I was just so happy to see her face when she realized she was still on the podium. It was so good.
There was an interview with her afterwards where she talked about how she had considered retiring last year, that she had never made it to the Senior Grand Prix. She's never had like a significant medal before. She thought her career was finished. And then she had this resurgence with that incredible performance at Challenger Cup last year. And to kind of get the nod to actually be on the Grand Prix circuit with, again, I say that the phrase deep field all the time, but it can't be overstated how intensely stacked that Japanese team is.
Exactly. And I want to stop there and note that last night we could not remember how many women it took to win 10 of the 12 medals in the Grand Prix series so far this season. So on the whiteboard in our kitchen, had to be like, okay, let's name them all and count the medals. And it's like 8 different Japanese women have won a medal on the Grand Prix series this season alone in 4 competitions. That is wild.
Yeah, they've swept the podium twice. So Yuna Aoki, being not one of their like top competitors, still lands on the podium here. And she was just thrilled because she was like, this made it all worth it. She's like, I stuck around for another season, not expecting much. And now I have a Grand Prix medal and this incredible moment. There's this gorgeous shot in the television feed where it's her standing in front of a crowd on their feet, waving the Japanese flag. And I hope somebody either screen grabs that or there's an actual like professional photo of it and that she blows that up and puts it on a wall in her house because it is the moment.
In fourth, though, I do want to give big kudos to Alyssa Liu. She was fourth in both the short and the free. She looked great. No falls in either program. Conditioning is still a factor here. She's on the queue or under rotating a few of her jumps. Those are all fixable things. So it was exciting to see her still being so competitive here already. She's only been back on the ice since January, and she's fourth at NHK Trophy, not that far behind a medal. And we're seeing consistent improvement. Her short program is a dream. It's so beautiful. Her free skate's the one that still needs the work because of that conditioning, because of the additional jumps that she has to kind of get through. I love what we're seeing here from her.
I'm constantly struck by the evolution of Alyssa, of who she is as a skater now after being gone for 2 years. The maturity that's in her skating, the evolution of her artistry, still harnessing that big, bright personality that she has, that playfulness that is so core to who Alyssa Liu seems to be. She's so engaging on the ice. It is fantastic to have her back. And she's shown remarkable consistency through this season, even if some of that consistency is kind of blowing out part of the way through the long and having some of those under rotations. She's still looks terrific, and she should feel really strong about those performances.
Brady Tennell is the one I think I had the most questions around, and that probably isn't surprising since I respect the hell out of Brady, but her skating isn't always my favorite. Her short program here I thought looked really good, and she landed in 5th there, again, under rotation issues. In her free skate, she did have a fall on her double axel, had some other issues here and there, but still landed 3rd in the free skate overall just because of the technical. Her levels were higher, her spins are really, really strong, and her technical ceiling was a bit higher. I don't know that I agree with that, but also where she landed in 5th, I think was completely fair overall. It's just more her free skate points just confused me a bit. And that may just be my lack of looking at every element and understanding the value. But overall, I thought both Alyssa and Yuna were better. And so where it shook out felt correct.
The thing with Brady's free skate is I think it starts pretty strong. I think it ends very strong because it showcases she's just such a terrific spinner.
Yes.
And so all of those final elements really let her gain momentum and finish powerfully. The middle of it is very soggy, though. It just loses my interest through the midsection. So I would like to see that just be kind of tightened up a little bit more energy added to that middle section. I agree that I don't understand that having been 3rd in the free, but as we've talked about before, stylistically, she just never really connects for me. So I probably am not always totally objective because her programs just don't land for me in the same way that those top 4 women did, or as the number 6 did, because I continue to be pretty enamored with the programs and skating of Italy's Laura Naki-Gutman.
She is just so unique. I love her short program. I think it is phenomenal. And it's just different because she allows herself to just be herself. It doesn't feel like she is trying to fit into the ballerina box, if you will. She is kind of a unique personality out there. She has had kind of horror-themed programs. We've talked before about loving her Hitchcock program last season. This short program is similar in the sense that it has kind of a unique vibe to it. Her free skate's a little bit more traditional slightly, but she just keeps showing up, being stronger. And I think that she could really start making some forward movements here. She's not going to be top of podiums at big competitions, but this is certainly a step forward from last season.
Yeah, and we'll see her next at Finlandia, and that is a bit of a softer women's competition, especially compared to what's going to happen at Cup of China, which is going to be like a battle royale between a lot of really powerful skaters. So I wouldn't count her out as a dark horse candidate for lower podium at Finlandia because anything could kind of happen there. And here with a 180.28, that's not a big number, but in a softer competition, she could arrive if she stayed steady like she did here. So yeah, I really like it.
I do too. Well, let's wrap this up with the pairs. And I really have to say I am super impressed with Metelkina and Berulava. They have been showing consistently over the past 2 seasons that they are a force to be reckoned with. I felt like this was the most actualized on that promise that we've seen.
We've talked repeatedly about how this is a team that was so impressive last year, but they peaked too soon and fell apart towards the end of the season. This season, you'd see them in a practice and they'd land things that were so much crisper than everybody else's. And then they'd go out into actual competition and things would kind of break down a little bit. They don't always feel totally connected, even though they're capable of syncing in a way that very few of the other teams can match. When they do manage to bring it all together, they're extremely dangerous. And here we saw that delivered. Their free skate really brought it home. Metelkina and Berulava are just a very, very solid team. And this is that showcase of any of these top teams can be defeated on any given day if they just slip up. As we close in on the Grand Prix final, you could see Metelkina and Berulava on the top of that podium if they perform as well as they did here and other teams don't quite live up to their potential. A sidebar on them that I'm going to throw out is just that I have to give them gigantic kudos for doing a Mortal Kombat exhibition gala. As a kid of the 90s who both played that game, loved that movie, did martial arts, and actually briefly trained with the guy who played Scorpion from the Mortal Kombat movies. It was so funny to see them come out because they took off their robes and they were in those outfits. And I was like, oh my God, they're doing Mortal Kombat. And they did so much thematic stuff around it. I'm like, in Japan, maybe the audience got that. I feel like a lot of other skating audiences are probably going to watch it and be like, why is she blowing a kiss and he's dying? Why are they doing these bobble things and all this stuff? And for me, I'm like, oh my God, they're doing Mortal Kombat. I loved it. And they did Spandau Ballet in the middle of it for some reason. I don't know why, but it was super fun.
Okay, I'm going to take a beat and then I'm going to move us on to the Japanese loves of our lives, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, who did not have their best competition here. They were first after the short program, looked really strong there, but only had a very slight lead over Metelkina and Berulava. Their free skate wasn't bad by any means, but they had enough small mistakes to drop them about 4-ish points behind, which, to your point, it's a close competition amongst those top 4, maybe 5 teams. So you have a few slip ups, you're going to drop down.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room for error. And here you can see this team will really beat themselves up sometimes when they've had a bad skate. And I was really happy to see that they didn't really do that. Particularly, I mean, you could see that Ryuichi was a little frustrated and it was Riku's turn to kind of be like, it's okay. We're all right. You know, you're still going to the final, still locked it in easily with a gold and a silver. They were still strong skates. They just weren't quite as good as the last time that we saw them. And not a lot of room for slip ups with any of these top pairs teams.
Well, not quite to that level, but kind of that next tier down. I feel like the team that has shown the most consistency this season is Ellie Kam and Danny O'Shea, who took the bronze medal here. They looked great. Their short program especially was really fantastic. Not maybe the best we've seen them do it this season because they've done it damn near flawlessly. They still had throw problems in the free skate. But that said, Ellie looks great this season, so much stronger. And Danny's just a fantastic partner. So I really genuinely hope that they make the Grand Prix final. It's going to be close. Looking at the numbers, it's very likely to be between them and Italy's Ghiardi and Ambrosini for that 6th spot.
Who have not done their second Grand Prix yet. And they did not look very good the first time out.
No, but they're also going to be in Finland this coming weekend. You have Deanna and Max, who, would be the favorites going in. But if that's not the case, if they have a rough skate, it's going to be interesting how tight this gets.
I think that Ellie and Danny are candidates for most improved. They've come so far in a short period of time. In the short program here, I think that's the most confident I've ever seen Ellie. She looked so solid and so in control of her jumps. She's gotten so much better about staying up, and that makes a huge difference. They so definitively have the hardest and most interesting transitions into their throws of any team. I think that early on they recognized that the difficulty that she had in landing throws was always a big detriment for them. So they leveled up all of the elements around them so they could maximize GOE points and just showcase all of their skills. And so that now that you're seeing her land more consistently and you see how well they've gelled as a team, those difficult elements only make them more impressive. They're still not top of the podium threats, but they are a ton of fun to watch. I think that as a team, their charisma and vibe has gelled.
Yes.
And
just Ellie's confidence.
Yeah.
So much better.
I'm thrilled to see how far they've come. I think when they won nationals in the US last year, it was kind of almost they won by default because Chan and Hao had to pull out halfway through. But now they really do look like the US national champions. And in another season or so, they could be great.
Agreed.
And then I think just to wrap it up, looking at Germany's Hakan Kunkel here, they're in a fairly distant 4th. They were about 9 points behind Ellie and Danny. Annika and Robert are a super fun team. I think that we're seeing diminishing returns on them this season. And some of that might just be because they're reusing a short program that is a lot of fun, but at the same time is starting to feel a little stale. Sometimes the choice to keep an older program really makes sense, and other times it seems to run out of steam. And I think that program is kind of running out of steam.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it a lot. And I know we watch all of the competitions, so that might be why. But I still feel like if I'm feeling that, I'm pretty sure audiences are feeling that, and it loses momentum over time. So yeah, diminishing returns, but they are a super fun team, and I adore Annika. So I'm definitely hoping we see improvement as we go along.
They just haven't been performing as well.
No.
I would have thought coming into the season that they would have been one of the more competitive teams, and instead they've been lagging behind. And I think that's a shame because they really have a lot of talent and they're a ton of fun. Maybe later into the season, and particularly going into like Europeans and stuff, maybe we'll see a resurgence from them.
Well, let's move on to our favorite segment, Gold in Our Hearts. Who's on your list this week?
I had a struggle to make this choice, but I think that I am going to land with Andrew Torgashev.
Yeah.
Torgs has been really impressive on this Grand Prix circuit. I think numerically it's probably unlikely that he'll make it to the Grand Prix final, but he has really shown a ton of consistency. He's been super fun to watch. I love seeing that partnership with Brendan Fraser. Yeah, it just makes me really happy to see a skater who's been kind of in the background for a long time get an opportunity to shine and really take control of that opportunity and use it. And I really like his programs. Andrew Torgashev is the gold in my heart for this week.
I'm giving mine to Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea because were they perfect here? No. Have I seen them better this season? Yes. But I'm just so happy. This is, I think, their fourth competition of the season, and they have medaled at every single one of them. That is not something I would have expected to say at the beginning of this season about Ellie and Danny. They are just remarkable to see at this point, and having only been together a few years, they're just gelling in a way that is refreshing, and it gives me hope for the U.S. pairs program. They are gold in my heart this week.
And it would have been really easy to have given it to Yuna Aoki, who...
Or Tetsuya Saboi. It was my other thought. I almost gave it to him because him crying in the kiss and cry was just so on point.
Yes, very emotional.
Very sweet.
You know, and Mona Chiba was incredible. You know, there was a lot of really, really good stuff here. You know, when I look at Yuna Aoki, I feel like she probably felt like she won gold just for picking up that medal at this point in her career and having such a great day. There were a lot of really good choices here. Overall, I thought this was a pretty terrific event. I really enjoyed the gala and everything that was going on with it. Kind of funny to see the Japanese team from the Olympics brought out so that they could be showing off their silver medals in front of that home crowd, particularly because they did bring in Shoma Uno
Which
to
I had
join
mixed
them.
feelings about because I'm like, there's Shoma. And he's not skating. It just hurt my soul a little bit.
If there's the last thing that I want to mention, it's that if there's an award for single cutest moment of the entire event, it's in that moment of the gala where they have the Japanese Olympic team, you know, skating around, saying hi to the crowd and stuff. You have Riku and Ryuichi hand in hand skating together. You have Kaori Sakamoto and Wakaba Higuchi, who are besties, and so they're skating there hand in hand. And then you have Masato Kumatsubara and Tim Coletto, who are an ice dance team and now retired, but they're like skating hand in hand. And then you have Yuma and Shoma skating kind of in the middle of that pack together. And at some point, Shoma looks around and sees everybody else holding hands and then just reaches out to Yuma and he just said, "We should do it too." And so they hold hands for the end of it skating together. And you see, I don't remember if it's Wakaba or if maybe it's Masato or somebody like behind it sees it and just starts laughing because it's so adorable.
And so does Yuma, just cracking up.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It's adorable.
Yeah, that would be like my favorite moment of the whole thing because it was just hysterical. But overall, again, NHK is always awesome and it was a ton of fun. Things are going to get real crazy over the next couple of weeks because with these last two Grand Prix qualifiers, this coming weekend at Finlandia is, like we mentioned earlier, a little bit softer in some of those competitions.
In some of them, but not all of them. The pairs is going to be in particular very interesting to see how it kind of shakes out.
Yeah, and we're in this numbers game now of figuring out who's going to have enough points to make it to the final. Some people who we would have thought early on would have been obvious choices for it have pulled out. That changes some of it. We have a lot of really great skaters coming up that are also not necessarily the most consistent skaters. And so we don't know how they're going to perform when they get there. So really going to be eyeing this one because it's going to kind of set the stage for the big show at Cup of China leading up to that Grand Prix final. So
I think you're focused on the women's event because the women's event at Cup of China looks like a bloodbath.
It is going to be You mentioned doing the dry erase board. We were charting things out and trying to figure it out, looking through the scores for the whole season. We were doing math, and I hate math. And numerically, if they all performed as well as they have, well, here's who would win and here's who would take it. And it's, I mean, oh my gosh, it's going to be kind of stressful, but I'm excited for all of it. So as always, let us know in the comments who is your gold in your heart from this competition. How are you feeling about the shaping up of the Grand Prix in general? Do you have any hot takes about who you think now should be locking their way to the final? Are you expecting any surprises in the next upcoming competitions? We'd love to hear about it. And for Scoreography, I'm Matron Buskey.
And I'm Wendy Buskey.
And we will talk to you next time.
Bye.